can do what the fuck she wanted to do.
When they saw the prices, bro, that
You get that money. I hate America, man. I hate this place. I hate America. I hate this whole earth, man. I don't like nowhere, bro. I don't like nowhere, and I've been places, bro. And every place I've been, I fucking hate.
Well, I try to keep in mind what Apostle Borrowers bring out. That word America means bitter. So every day it's going to be bitter, one way or another. Yeah, you know.
All right, shalom, shalom. I want to start this lesson as always by giving all glory, honor, and thanks to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash, as well as a double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS Great Millstone, and to the rest of the elders in Akim around the globe, bringing this word out within truth and diligence. And you heard the elder Gabar Yahawada of GMS Hawaii, and that's going to be the main intro to every one of these Trenches of Babylon series. You know, not only is the world a prison for Jake, but America, Babylon the Great, is maximum security. This place sucks. And we're going to highlight in the first clip the decay of Babylon the Great. And this is Seattle, Washington.
Well, WashDOT's goal was to have the off-ramp back open for the morning commute, but right now we know that that's not going to happen, and it is closed until further notice because it may have been worse than expected. As you zoom in here, we can see that crews right now are monitoring the area around where this pothole is. That crews say are 5 feet by 4 feet, very large. I want to show you this new picture that we're seeing here where you can nearly see through the off-ramp here down below on what is just a really large pothole with the rebar still exposed at this point. And we also want to show you some video from last night. Traffic cameras showed a couple cars pulled over on the side of the road. The pothole caused several flat tires yesterday, which is what led, of course, to the need for the closures. The traffic cameras also show a tow truck on this side of the road and a number of people out of their vehicles to change their tire. We don't know the exact number of flats, but right there in the video, you can see at least 5 cars pulled over. To put things in perspective, new data from the city of Seattle showed that potholes are the worst they've been in 5 years. Last year alone, the Seattle Department of Transportation filled 23,000 potholes. And so again, right now there's no time to...
And you look at that. Imagine, man, you on the way to the plantation and you run over this. That's dangerous as hell. You could literally sink right through the freeway. You about 20, 30 feet elevated above the ground below. You know, and that the scriptures I'm gonna pull up in Isaiah the 14th chapter, it highlights the decay. America's infrastructure is collapsing. And this is Isaiah 14 verse 11. Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, in the noise of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. And what do worms represent? They represent decay. I hate this thing. Get out of here. And let's get that in the NLT, Isaiah 14 verse 11 NLT. Your might and power were buried with you. The sound of the harp in your palace has ceased. Now maggots are your sheet and worms your blanket. And we see this right here. You got just sinkholes on your damn freeways. And what makes Seattle in particular a special different in this series is, number one, the racial demographics of Seattle. And number two, the corporations based out of Seattle. You got, this is corporations headquartered in Seattle, companies based in Seattle from Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks, Boeing, Nordstrom, Expedia, Alaska Airlines, Oracle, Adobe, Redfin, and Leafly, which is a dispensary, and Costco. You have straight up titans. These are giants in the business world. Amazon and Microsoft, everyone use Amazon. Everywhere you go in public, any type of job you work is going to have some form of Microsoft or Windows. You know, I remember back in Windows 98, Starbucks is all over, is worldwide. Boeing, Nordstrom, you know? So why I brought that up is that shows you the type of, you know, wealth a city will have. And because look how many jobs that provides. Here in Vegas, a whole bunch of people work for Amazon. The headquarters is Seattle, so you can imagine how many jobs this brings in for the Seattle metro area. Yet this place is being plagued with cost of living due to greed, which leads to homelessness, which leads to drug abuse, which leads to crime. And the fourth one, which is a shocker, is the prostitution. And why I say that's a shocker is let's go to the racial demographics of Seattle. Most cities in this series are going to be a Jake-dominated city. This is heathen-dominated. You look, 2/3 of the city are Edomites, so-called white people. And about a little over a quarter of the city is so-called Asians, which would be mainly Ammonites, the so-called Japanese, as well as Moabites, the so-called Chinese. But this is mainly a heathen city, as well as we go to Google Maps. This is the Seattle metro area. Tacoma down here, I know is known to have more of a higher percentage of Jakes. But even we go to Tacoma's racial demographics, Jake still is at best 1/3 of this population. So all the degeneration and crime and homelessness, you can't blame on Jake for this city. So that shows you Esau, your kingdom through. You know, they always try to blame Jake for everything. So let's get some clips.
Buying a home in Seattle is getting harder and harder. A new report from Redfin shows the average monthly home payment here is more than $5,000 a month. You need to make at least $205,000 to afford it. That's a 45% increase from last year. Tacoma, more affordable, but by no means cheap. Redfin says you need to make $141,000 to afford a home there. The average monthly mortgage payment there, $3,500.
That's insane.
Over $117,000. That is the minimum salary needed to be happy in our state, according to a new study by Purdue University and GoBankingRate.com. Researchers looked at the dollar amount needed for emotional well-being, and they said that's between $66,000 to $83,000 a year. States that require higher salaries to be happy, more than Washington, Oregon, California, New York, and at the highest rate, Hawaii at $202,000. In North America as a whole, researchers saying the ideal income for life satisfaction is $105,000.
And that's straight bullshit, because she said North America as a whole, which would include Mexico. You know what type of quality of life you would have in Mexico, making $100,000+ a year. That's why a lot of Edomites are moving down there too, because America and Canada, chiefly Toronto and Vancouver, and a lot of these cities, Montreal, have gotten too damn expensive. So let's pull up a couple scriptures and we'll get into the next clip, because you look at what's going on in places, Seattle, but this all starts at the top. This is Sirach 10th chapter, verse 2 through 3. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. In what manner of a man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. And Esau, Edom, at the top, being in Amalek, chiefly the Jewish people, are destroying his own wicked little queendom through greed, because he is a niggard. The so-called white man, the Jewish people are greedy. They are niggards. And we look this up. This is all going to be in Sirach 14 verse 3. Riches are not calmly for a niggard. And what should an envious man do with money? And that's why you got skyrocketing homelessness everywhere, because these niggas at the top just want more, and more. Their belly can't be satisfied. They need more. And that's causing a lot of people out of work. And what happens? You end up homeless and then on drugs to cope. Sirach 14:10. A wicked eye envieth his bread, and he is a niggard at his table. Sirach 31:24. But against him that is a niggard of his meat, the whole city shall murmur, and the testimonies of his niggardness shall not be doubted of. And everyone, with eyes can see the motherfuckers at the top are greedy as hell, and they destroying everything. And this is going to lead into our next. We'll get Baruch for the 4th chapter after this.
Even in the pouring rain, the addiction is fierce.
What is that?
It's called pixie dust.
Drug users congregate under umbrellas near bus stops and vestibules, or simply get high out in the open in front of shocked parents and children.
But if anything, it's teaching her not to do drugs. I never will.
Good for you.
Look at this man overdosing near the Raw store.
Was he doing blues?
I don't know what is it.
Police rushed in to save his life with several hits of Narcan as people watched in horror.
Are you just used to this?
I've been here for a long ass time, so yeah.
This all happened over the weekend in downtown Seattle,
All of that in front of people, it's bad.
with most of the action concentrated on 3rd Ave and Pike Street.
Whatever the city decides to do is not going to stop.
Lion jacket shit! You are a lion jacket shit!
Right in the middle of this tourist gateway,
The security of it and tell you what's in there.
the drug of choice remains fentanyl, also known on the street as Fetty or blues. These tiny pills being smoked on sheets of foil now go for as little as $2 a pop.
All of us have Narcan.
Health officials say it's the primary driver behind King County's record drug overdose deaths last year.
So you're trying to make sure that your fentanyl doesn't have the trank in it, is that right?
Yeah.
Making matters worse, Trank is in the...
And I believe I highlighted Trank in the last series, which is plaguing Philadelphia. Trank, that mixed with fentanyl, that literally rots your skin while you're alive. It's, Babylon's being plagued all over. But at first, when it was Jake, and that highlights Deuteronomy 37. All these curses shall be put upon your enemies. When it was Jake, all strung out, high out of their mind off that crack cocaine, it was funny. Just get it together. Grab your boots up. But now look, now that the Edomites and all these heathen are dropping like flies due to these opioids and fentanyl and all that, it's a crisis. It's an epidemic. And what's that leading to? All this homelessness and drugs and crime. It's misery. Baruch 4 verse 31. Miserable are they that afflicted thee and rejoiced at thy fall. Miserable are the cities which thy children served. Miserable is she that received thy sons. For as she rejoiced at thy ruin and was glad of thy fall, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation. And that's what we see in all these cities. They're miserable as hell. So let's get the next clip.
And in the meantime, who is cleaning up the area outside the school? The students and the teachers are. Yeah. The kids are the ones picking up the needles and the garbage and the other filth left by these addicts. It's disgusting. The city's left them in the dust. Discovery Institute journalist Jonathan Cho joins me now. So this mayor is out to lunch. He says he's got some plan, but where is the plan? He's done nothing.
Yeah, look, Jesse, it really is living through America's slums here in Seattle, and this is the heart of the Chinatown.
And we gonna pause that real quick because that's a very beautiful, if you're in this truth, a very beautiful thing to hear. He said living in America's slums, and he ain't talking about Los Angeles, New York, St. Louis, Detroit. He's talking about Seattle. And we pulled up the racial demographics. This is mainly our enemies, our heathen dwelling here. And he's calling America, he's referring to one of America's cities as slums. And this is the Emerald City, which is known as Seattle, the Emerald City. This is one of Esau Edom's jewels, and it's a slum. And Donald Trump, a couple weeks ago, stated that America has turned into a third world country. So if Seattle's this bad, imagine what the rest of these cities look like.
Yeah, look, Jesse, it really is living through America's slums here in Seattle. And this is the heart of the Chinatown International District, an area that's already been marginalized, that already faces so many problems, homeless encampments, drug dens, drug users, and the criminal activity that just comes along with all of this stuff. And the mayor, look, to his credit, keeps talking about, prioritizing this area, this neighborhood. There are emphasis patrols, more officers on the streets, but it's just not working and leading to lasting change. And that's the problem. There is no clear blueprint. In fact, the mayor even said during a State of the City address this past week that he's gonna do something about it eventually, but we don't know all the details right now. And that's the most frustrating piece on the ground. There's no exact timeline or a strategy and plan.
Releasing their 2022 crime report. Data shows shootings were at an all-time high last year, with the majority of the crime in 3 Seattle City neighborhoods: the Chinatown International District, Brighton, and Northgate. KOMO's Hannah Knowles is asking residents if they feel safe in this city and what changes they would like to see elected officials make.
Here in the city of Seattle, overall crime is up 4% from 2022 to 2021. One of the big findings in this 22-page report, gun violence at an all-time high with 739 incidents citywide.
I live in Central District and it's awful over there. We hear gun shooting all the time. There's people living in their cars, trash all over the place, needles everywhere.
Alarming numbers from the Seattle Police Department. 2022, the highest rate of crime on city record in 15 years.
Well, do you feel safe in Seattle?
No.
And why is that?
There's just too much going on the streets.
Most of the time. It's kind of living in the city. Unfortunately, a part of that.
I think it has gotten better, but I will say that there's like a hardcore drug problem.
As you can see on this chart, 2021 was the previous all-time high, followed by 2020.
And you heard that Edomite-looking woman say it's a increasing drug problem. And so we touched on the cost of living leading to homelessness, the homelessness leading to drug abuse, the drug abuse and fentanyl crisis epidemic leading to a skyrocketing crime. It just saw a record high. The gun violence is increasing. And Seattle, as it is known, to be one of the suicide capitals and drug abuse capitals. Just let's look this up. Their two most iconic entertainers, which would be Jimi Hendrix, a guitarist, as well as Kurt Cobain, I believe were heroin addicts. At the inquest, finding no evidence of suicide, I believe, died of an overdose. So Jimi Hendrix died of an overdose, and Kurt Cobain, I believe he was, always off that heroin, and he killed himself. And those are your most iconic entertainers in Seattle. So what's crazy though is what I'm gonna pull up next, which is the prostitution. Because you look at America, and this is all basically from San Francisco to about Norfolk, Virginia. That's your Sunbelt region. All of these cities, or even the colder cities up north, which are predominantly in the Midwest, in the Northeast, I expect to have high levels of prostitution basically due to the curses. If you gonna have Jake, you gonna have, Amos 7:17, thy wife shall be a harlot in the city. But we pulled up the demographics of Seattle, and it's mainly heathens. And when you look at on YouTube, let's type in Aurora Avenue. The prostitution is off the charts. And I'm not gonna play none of the videos, but you can just see. You got certain channels dedicated to just the streetwalkers up in Seattle. And, you see a lot of heathen women, a lot of Edomite women. You obviously see Eve in Southern Kingdom Eve up in there. That looks like Northern Kingdom Eve right there. But the streets is flooded with whores. Straight up. And it's so much prostitution in Seattle. You got channels putting up millions of views just showing the hood. Look at Aurora Ave Nights, Seattle hookers on payday. And it looks like 2 Edomite women with Southern Kingdom Eve. And then you got this guy, Street Underdog. His whole channel is just going around blades around the country, but mainly Seattle, looking at the streetwalkers. It's straight up prostitution. And I wouldn't expect that in a city way up in the Pacific Northwest with, mainly heathen dominated. But it shows you these plagues. Esau, Edom, as the ruler, as the judge, so are his officers. And let's get this, because it speaks not to prostitute your daughter, or your land's gonna be fucked up. And this is Leviticus 19, verse 29. Do not prostitute thy daughter to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom and the land become full of wickedness. And that's what we're seeing here in Seattle. We're seeing drug overdoses, tent cities of homelessness, increasing crime, prostitution off the charts. And these girls probably miserable, for that to be your job. You got all types of pure wickedness dwelling in a city that, once again, has freaking Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks, Boeing, Nordstrom, Expedia, Adobe, Oracle, and Redfin based in its city. You got Titan corporations, all that money flowing through, and yet the people are mourning, pursuing to, I believe, let's close off on that scripture. This is going to be Proverbs. It's Proverbs, the 29th chapter. Proverbs 29, verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. And we're seeing that. Seattle, just another one on the list. So I hope this was edifying. Shalom.